I used to believe I had the kind of marriage people envied. Friends would ask how we kept the spark alive, how we made time for each other with our busy schedules. And I'd smile, feeling lucky. I truly thought I had won the relationship lottery. My husband, Daniel, was everything I imagined a partner should be: charming, intelligent, attentive. He made coffee every morning, kissed my forehead when he thought I was still asleep, left notes on the fridge saying, "I love you," just because. We had our rituals. Friday night movie marathons, Sunday brunches, inside jokes. Our life felt like a rhythm, steady and comforting. We met in college, fell in love fast, moved in before graduation. The kind of love that made you feel anchored, seen. He'd sit through my boring work stories, hold me when anxiety had its grip on me, plan surprise weekends when life got too heavy. He never once made me question his loyalty, or at least, not until recently. Looking back, the signs were there, quiet but undeniable. He started working late more often, brushing it off with vague explanations. Business dinners, client emergencies, traffic. He'd come home, shower immediately, toss his clothes in the laundry. His phone became an extension of his hand, always locked, always on silent. He stopped initiating affection. No more spontaneous kisses or teasing winks from across the room. Just distance. I chalked it up to stress. Work had been demanding for both of us. Maybe he was just tired, I told myself. We all go through rough patches. I didn't want to be that wife, the paranoid, insecure one digging through texts and jumping to conclusions. That's not who we were. At least I didn't think so. Then came the message. It was a Wednesday evening. He had left his phone on the kitchen counter while stepping out to take a call on the balcony. It buzzed. A preview lit up the screen. "Last night was unforgettable. I can't stop thinking about you." Followed by a heart emoji. My fingers froze. My heart dropped, pounding so hard it made me dizzy. I stared at the screen, hoping I'd misread. The name was saved as Ava Pilates. My stomach churned. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Not then. I placed the phone back exactly how it was and walked away like nothing had happened. But something had shifted. My world tilted. I watched him through the glass door as he spoke on the phone, smiling, gesturing casually like life was normal. I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers, but I needed to be sure. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I was wrong. That night, I barely slept. I laid beside him, rigid, replaying every interaction, every late night, every unexplained trip. The next day, I acted normal. I cooked breakfast, asked about his meeting, kissed his cheek as he left. I felt fake. A puppet performing a version of our marriage that didn't exist anymore. I watched his car pull out of the driveway and I cried. Not because of the message, but because a part of me still hoped he'd never betray me. That night, he came home with flowers. "No occasion. Just thought of you today," he said. I thanked him, smiled, placed them in a vase, and tried not to break down. I started watching closely. I didn't confront him. I wanted to, but I didn't trust my emotions. I needed more than a text preview. I needed clarity. So I waited. I noticed more patterns. He'd rush to shower when he got home, turn his phone face down, sometimes take calls in the garage. He was extra attentive after being distant, like guilt-prompted affection. One night, I asked him to hand me his phone to check a recipe. He hesitated just long enough to confirm everything I feared. But he did hand it over, unlocking it first. The message thread with Ava was gone. I felt numb. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. The final straw was a Saturday morning. He said he had an early tennis match with coworkers. I kissed him goodbye, then decided to clean out the guest room closet. I found a receipt tucked inside his jacket pocket. Dinner for two. A fancy rooftop restaurant downtown. Last Saturday night. The night he said he was at a friend's bachelor party. 2 entrees. Wine. Dessert. $170. He hadn't even bothered to throw it out. I stared at it for what felt like hours. My hand trembled, but my resolve hardened. I folded it carefully and slid it into my nightstand. Proof. I didn't cry this time. Just felt hollow. Empty. I waited until he got home. He came back cheerful, sweaty, telling me how he crushed his game. I nodded, played along. But my mind had already made its choice. I needed the truth. Not just pieces. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. I planned a dinner out, told him it was for just us. "We need some time alone," I said, watching his expression. He agreed instantly. I made the reservation. His favorite place. Saturday night. I even wore the dress he used to love. My heart wasn't in it, but I wanted answers. Closure. A confession, maybe. Anything but more lies. But fate didn't give me that luxury. When I walked in, the hostess asked, "Are you joining the couple by the window?" I frowned. "What couple?" She pointed. And there he was. Already seated. With her. I didn't turn away. I walked up to the table like I belonged there, like I wasn't unraveling inside. He looked up and froze. She turned around, confused. I didn't need to introduce myself. The wedding ring on my finger, the look on his face, it said everything. "I see you've started without me," I said flatly, locking eyes with him. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Ava's smile disappeared. "You're married?" she asked, voice sharp.
He still didn't speak.
I sat down, calm, but shaking inside. "You've been lying to both of us." I turned to her. "He told me he was at a friend's party last Saturday. But that dinner receipt in his jacket says otherwise." She blinked, clearly piecing things together. "You knew?" she asked him. He just stared at his drink. "I didn't plan for this," he muttered. That's all he could say. I laid it out. The message from her. The calls. The fake tennis games. The missing hours. I saw it all. You didn't even try to hide it well. He finally looked at me, and what I saw wasn't shame. It was annoyance. Like I had ruined his fun. "We were falling apart," he said. "You've been distant for months." That was his justification. My silence. My stress. My long work hours. I reminded him that marriages go through phases. That doesn't give someone the right to cheat. Ava stood up. "I'm done. You lied to me too." She looked at him with disgust, then at me with pity. "I didn't know," she said before walking away. I believed her. I didn't care. She wasn't my problem.
He was.
We sat in silence, the sounds of clinking glasses and laughter from other tables mocking us. He tried to explain how things got stale, how he felt invisible, how she made him feel alive. I asked him, "Do you feel alive now?" He had no answer. I asked one thing. "Why didn't you stop?" His face twisted like the question offended him. "Because it felt good," he said. "And I didn't think you'd find out." That truth was worse than anything. Not guilt. Not regret. Just selfishness. I nodded, stood up, and said, "Then you've made your choice." I left him there. He didn't follow. The days that followed were a blur. I didn't sleep. I replayed everything, from our first date to our last kiss. I kept asking myself, was it all fake? Was I blind?
No.
I was in love. I trusted someone who didn't deserve it. I went through the motions like a robot. Work, errands, bills, but inside, I was empty. He texted a few times. Asked if we could talk. Said he missed me. I didn't respond. I gathered everything, his clothes, books, junk from the garage, and packed them in boxes. He came to get them without saying much. We stood in silence. He didn't apologize. He just asked, "Are you sure this is what you want?" I looked at him, the man I once loved, and realized I didn't recognize him anymore. I didn't want any of this. But you made the choice for both of us.
He left. Just like that.
I started sleeping on one side of the bed. I turned my phone off at night. I stopped checking the driveway hoping he'd come back. He'd already left long before I knew. My sister came over one evening with wine. She didn't say much, just let me cry. The shame was worse than the heartbreak. Shame that I let it happen, that I stayed blind, that I believed his lies. I needed answers, not from him, but from myself. So I started journaling everything. Every red flag I ignored. Every time I excused his behavior. Every time I convinced myself he was just tired or stressed. Writing helped. It made things real. It showed me I hadn't failed. I just trusted the wrong person. He didn't love me the way I needed to be loved. And maybe he never did. A few weeks later, I ran into Ava at a grocery store. She was awkward, unsure whether to say hello. I approached her. She apologized again. I told her she wasn't the problem. We talked. Not like rivals, but like two women who were lied to by the same man. She told me he'd contacted her too. Tried to spin the story. Said I'd emotionally abandoned him.
She didn't buy it.
He's good at making people feel like they're the problem, she said. We shared a sad laugh. It helped strangely. Knowing she'd been fooled too. That it wasn't just me. That he was the liar, not me the fool. I saw a therapist. At first, I didn't think it would help. But it did. She helped me unpack the betrayal, the self-blame, the loss. Not just of the marriage, but of the future I thought we had. Of the years I gave. Of the trust one built. Healing didn't feel like progress at first. It felt like pain. But slowly, I started feeling less like a victim and more like someone finding her way back. One day, I deleted all the pictures of us. Not out of anger, but because I no longer needed to hold on to memories of someone who didn't exist anymore. The version of him I loved was gone. Maybe he never existed. I didn't get closure from him. I never would. Closure wasn't something he could give. It had to come from within. And it started the moment I stopped asking, why did he do this? And started asking, why did I stay silent? I was done being quiet. Done being passive. He didn't stop. So I had to. I had to stop believing in a marriage that no longer existed. I had to stop loving someone who didn't love me enough to stay loyal. That's when healing truly began. I didn't answer his texts. Not because I was trying to punish him, but because there was nothing left to say. A man who could lie to my face for months didn't deserve my words. I wasn't interested in apologies he didn't mean, or explanations that only served to ease his guilt. He had already chosen what I meant to him. Silence was the only truth I had left. Still, he didn't stop trying. He sent long messages about how much he missed me, how it was a mistake, how he felt like he lost everything. He said he was willing to do therapy, to work on things, to be better. He called it a rough patch. I called it betrayal. He didn't lose me. He gave me away one lie at a time. Every time he stayed out late. Every time he silenced his phone. Every time he smiled at me with another woman on his mind. He asked if we could meet. Said he wanted to talk in person. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Not for him, for me. I needed to look him in the eye and say what I hadn't said before. We met at a park. Neutral. Open. Nothing intimate. He looked tired. Worn out. But not broken. Just uncomfortable. Like someone facing the consequences they thought they could dodge. He started with small talk. I cut him off. I don't need you to explain. I need you to hear me. He sat down and listened. I told him how every moment of doubt I had was silenced by my trust in him. How I defended him when friends hinted he seemed distant. How I made excuses for his coldness, convinced myself it was work, stress, pressure. I told him I hated who I became, suspicious, anxious, second-guessing every instinct. I wasn't like that before. He turned me into someone who tiptoed around her own home, afraid of the truth. He said he didn't mean to hurt me, that he didn't know how to ask for what he needed. I asked him if what he needed was someone else's body, someone else's laugh, someone who didn't carry the weight of his real life. He didn't answer, just looked at the ground like a child caught stealing. He called it a mistake. I corrected him. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or saying something in anger. What he did was a decision. Repeatedly. He had to plan it, lie about it, cover it up. That wasn't a moment of weakness. That was a pattern. He said he felt neglected, that I had become distant, that I was always tired. I nodded. I had been. Life wasn't perfect. I was exhausted trying to keep everything going, my job, the house, supporting him. I gave so much that I had nothing left for myself. And in return, He found someone who wasn't worn down. He chose comfort over commitment. He said he still loved me. I asked, "Did you love me while you kissed her?" He said nothing. I pressed on. "Did you love me when you lied about where you were? When you looked me in the eyes and said you were tired after work, when you had just left her bed?" His face crumbled, but not with guilt, with shame. Shame that his actions were finally staring back at him, mirrored through my voice. I told him I didn't want his love anymore. I wanted peace. I wanted freedom from this cycle of self-doubt and pain. I had no interest in rebuilding something he had burned to the ground. Trust once broken doesn't glue itself back together. He asked if there was any chance. I said no, not out of spite, but because I had already given too many chances when I didn't even know I was giving them. He apologized again. I nodded, but didn't accept it. Not because I held a grudge, but because it didn't change anything. Some wounds don't close just because someone says, "I'm sorry." I stood up and told him I hoped he found whatever it was he was looking for. I didn't look back when I walked away. I didn't need to. The days after that meeting were different. Something shifted. I wasn't waking up angry anymore. I wasn't replaying old conversations or imagining what he was doing. I stopped wondering if she was prettier, funnier, more exciting. It didn't matter. It was never about her. It was about him, his choices, his emptiness, his inability to hold something real without ruining it. I filed for divorce. There was no dramatic court battle, no begging. Just paperwork. Cold, transactional. A quiet end to something that once felt so loud, so alive. He didn't fight it. Maybe he thought there was still a chance if he acted agreeable. Or maybe he realized I was done pretending. I didn't tell many people. Just close friends, family. Some were shocked. Others admitted they had sensed something, but didn't want to interfere. Everyone had an opinion. Some said I should have fought for it. Others said I should have left sooner. But no one lived in my body. No one felt the slow, daily erosion of trust, the weight of knowing your partner was a stranger. I didn't need advice. I needed space. I got rid of things slowly. His toothbrush, his clothes, his books. I changed the bedsheets, took down the pictures, reclaimed the house, one object at a time. It felt symbolic, like clearing a room in my heart, making space for something better. Not someone better, just better peace. There were nights I still cried. Not for him, but for the version of me that believed love was enough. That if you gave everything, you'd get the same back. That trust was sacred. That marriage meant safety. That woman deserved to be mourned. I looked at old journals, old photos. And I didn't feel anger. Just distance. Like remembering a dream that no longer made sense. He reached out once more. Months later. A text. "Just checking on you." I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, but because I finally loved myself more. He broke something in me. But he also freed something. And I wasn't going back. Rebuilding wasn't glamorous. There was no big moment of transformation, no cinematic breakthrough. Just slow, steady, uncomfortable progress. Waking up alone stopped feeling foreign. Silence in the house became soothing rather than suffocating. I learned how to sit with myself without reaching for distractions. No more constantly checking my phone, waiting for validation or apologies. The urge to understand why he did what he did eventually faded. The truth had already revealed itself. He chose himself over us, and I wasn't going to waste my life analyzing that decision. I threw myself into my own life, piece by piece. I revisited hobbies I'd let slip away over the years. I took long walks with no destination, just letting my mind wander. I started journaling again, not about him, but about me, what I wanted, what I feared, what I'd ignored for too long. I was peeling back layers I hadn't touched in years. Not to fix myself, but to remember who I was before I handed over so much of my energy to someone who didn't value it. Friends noticed the shift. They stopped asking about him, started asking about me. For the first time, I gave honest answers. I admitted when I felt weak, when I doubted everything, when I still had dreams about him that left me hollow the next morning. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means accepting what happened without letting it define you. One of the most unexpected parts of it all was how clear things became. Once the fog of betrayal lifted, I could see how many times I'd sacrificed my own needs to keep the peace, to keep him happy, to hold the relationship together. I remembered the birthdays he forgot, the times I canceled plans to wait for him, the subtle ways I dimmed my own light so his could shine. Love shouldn't make you smaller. But I had made myself small in so many ways, and now I was done doing that. I started setting boundaries. With myself, with others. I stopped entertaining conversations that drained me. I said no without apologizing. I stopped accepting half-effort from people just because I didn't want to be alone. There's something powerful about choosing yourself, not out of ego, but out of necessity. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. Sometimes people asked if I'd ever date again. I didn't have a neat answer. It wasn't a priority. I wasn't closed off to love, but I was done chasing it. If it came, it would have to find me whole, not broken and desperate to be rescued. I didn't want someone to complete me. I wanted someone who respected what I had rebuilt. I traveled a little. Nothing extravagant. Just short trips to places I'd always wanted to see. I walked unfamiliar streets, tried food I couldn't pronounce, sat in cafes where no one knew my name. There was peace in anonymity, in rediscovering the world without the lens of being someone's wife.
I was just me, and that was enough.
There were moments I still caught my reflection and saw traces of the past. A look, a shadow of pain, a memory flashing across my face. But they didn't paralyze me anymore. They reminded me of what I'd endured and how far I'd come. Scars don't disappear, but they stop hurting after a while. They become proof, not of the pain, but of the survival. One evening, I found the old receipt again, the rooftop dinner. I'd kept it without meaning to, shoved in the back of a drawer. I looked at it for a few seconds, then tore it in half and dropped it in the trash. Not out of anger, but because I no longer needed reminders. That chapter was over. I didn't need to hold on to anything that tethered me to betrayal. I started dreaming again. Not about him. About my future. About starting a business. About learning a new language. About writing something meaningful. My thoughts weren't consumed by questions, or pain, or unanswered texts. There was space. Space for joy, creativity, rest. And I protected that space fiercely. I realized I didn't want the life I had with him back. Not even at its best. Because even then, I had to sacrifice too much of myself. I deserved a love that didn't require constant forgiveness. A love that didn't come with conditions or secrecy. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of it. Eventually, mutual friends stopped mentioning him. He faded from conversation, from relevance. I didn't need updates. I didn't need closure. He became just a part of my past. A lesson. A turning point. Someone who showed me what I would never accept again. I was stronger now. Not because I'd been broken, but because I rebuilt without shortcuts. Without pretending it didn't hurt. Without needing revenge or attention. I just moved forward. Quietly. Relentlessly. Looking back, the betrayal wasn't the end of me. It was the beginning. The moment I stopped waiting to be chosen. The moment I realized I could choose myself. I wasn't the woman who begged someone to stay. I was the woman who walked away when staying meant abandoning her self-worth. That's the real story. Not what he did, but what I did after.